Hello, gang.
Boo.
Gang. Hey, Carrie.
Hi.
And look, Joni's in quite the setting. But Joni, you look like you're actually outside.
I am.
Oh, wow. Your camera's great.
Oh, good.
And the blur effect's kind of nice, although looks
I,
pretty
I,
black.
I'm under this huge evergreen. Like it's like being inside a teepee. I mean, I'm just totally 360 degrees enclosed underneath it. It's
Nice.
wonderful. Yeah.
Huh. Um, well, where's everybody else? Let's see. Looks like everyone's at home today. Barbara at home. Carol out in space. Good place to be. Eve at home. Nice to see you. Carrie, you're looking cozy. Carrie, is it cold there in California?
No, well, yes and no. Depends on what you think cold is. It's warming up, but now it's going to a storm tonight and tomorrow. But I had surgery last week on my abdominal area, so I'm
Right.
hunkered in down in my seat. So I'm cold. I have a heating pad on and my belly.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yep. And Jan's in beautiful Santa Cruz, right in a sunny, beautiful retreat center overlooking the beach.
Hmm.
Lucky her. So she sends her love and
And all that.
Mm.
yeah, there's the board is shutting Healing Journeys, not shutting it down, but saying goodbye to her 30-year adventure with Healing Journeys.
Wow. So it's really wrapping up.
It's really wrapping up.
Oh, my Lord.
I know it's big.
Oh, and
Bitter.
sorry for the others that don't really know what we're talking
Yes.
about, but is there, uh, is the idea that if Jan's wrapping up, then Healing Journeys is wrapping up? There's no kind of thinking of giving it a different version or life or
Nope. 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 If somebody half her age or her health wanted to jump in, she'd probably mentor it a bit, but there's there's lots of cancer support groups. There is a need for it still, the way you know her organization worked, but no, there's a period at the end of the sentence.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know,
It was a good ride.
yeah, I was gonna say, and this is sort of a lesson, I guess, for everyone listening. It's like I think we do have a bit of a funny idea in the West, if I could say, that like everything is supposed to last forever, and everything is just supposed to get better and better, and organizations are supposed to last forever, and bands are supposed to last forever, and businesses are supposed to last forever, and I mean that's obviously not even true. But it seems like most people fight it until it has to be true.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe it's wise. Well, hello, Barbara Vale, who just came in, and Catherine out there. Thank you for being with us again. Lori, hello, welcome. Debbie, welcome back under the rainbow as usual. Lanny's out there somewhere. Well, uh, nice to see everyone. We have a sort of a smaller group than normal, which is kind of nice in its own way. I have something in mind I wanted to share today, but I'm also, interested to hear because it's a smaller group. Whenever it's a smaller group, I always feel like, ooh, let's find out what people are interested in and what people want to talk about. And I wonder if anybody has something that you brought today in mind that maybe we've touched on in the past or you were hoping to hear more about or anything like that. Does anybody want to? Gotta go back to gallery view here. Does anybody want to unmute and jump in? Anybody? Come on. I don't believe it. Uh, Chat about energy drain. Very good. All right.
I
Megan.
um I just moved back to Florida and I'm in North Florida and I happen to live 7 miles from Temple of the Universe, if anybody's familiar with Michael Singer.
Oh,
And oh my goodness, I went Sunday, I went Monday, and I'm going to go again tonight. He is really the whole community. The energy there, the vibration. I don't know what it was, but I can't wait to go back tonight.
well, and
And
can you
then
tell
and
us?
then and then right past there is the largest ISKCON temple, Hare Krishna, International Society of Krishna Consciousness. So there is so much juju in this area.
Can you tell us more about the Michael Singer place? I've actually never heard of it. I don't know. I don't even have a clue what you're talking about.
Well, he was on Oprah a couple years ago. He's a
Yeah.
spiritual teacher, and he's very humble. It's just letting go. And I only learned about him a year ago, and then to find out I'm living 7 miles from, uh, you have to Google him, Jonathan.
No,
He's a neat guy.
no. I do know who he is. I don't know what the place is. Like you're talking about it like it's a center, or you can go hear him speak, or I don't really understand what's
Well,
there.
he lives there, and I don't know how big the acreage is. There's a meditation hall, and so every night there's an hour and a half of yoga, followed by 45 minutes of meditation, and then on certain nights he'll talk, and then
Oh,
certain nights there's chanting, and yeah.
huh,
So I believe people live on the property. Tim, who helps him. So it starts off, we sing songs. At the very end, we go outside, we hold hands. I love it. We eat cookies and drink iced tea. Um,
huh.
so yes, I'm very, very grateful to be so close to these communities.
So it's kind of like a hybrid of church and community and yeah, a place to go to be connected.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I think we need more places like that, like everywhere and all the time, like everywhere. Um, and it's interesting actually. It connects a lot. I think it connects to what I was thinking of talking about today, but that's neat. I wonder if anybody else has some. It's fun when we have a smaller group to talk a little bit about the things that are impacting us. I wonder if anyone else has another model of spiritual connection that you might have be seeing or experimenting with. Like I like this, it's funny because some of us know each other from Denver and the Althea Center, and it wasn't quite the direction that we went, but I had a personal interest in a greater balance between the kind of mind body work and the teachings, that there would be a little more meditation and yoga and things like that. But that's not necessarily the vibe for every community, but I think those are really nice combos. And to add that sort of teachings and singing, it checks a lot of boxes for what I think we need to grow. And even for those of us that don't love all those things, I think it still sounds very holistic, right? It offers a lot of the elements that are important to grow, whether we like them or not. Now, Joni, you nodded your head like you'd heard of this place. Have you?
I have. I think he wrote about it a little bit at the end of his last book, The Something of Surrender. Um, yeah, he spoke about his center and the history of it. I think with his friend Tim and building it. It sounds wonderful. It sounds like a wonderful place to go and have. And Catherine, congratulations.
Yeah,
It's just awesome. You're that close, and already you've established community. That's just amazing.
yeah. How about anybody else? Does anybody else want to share something that's working for you. Maybe that's kind of a fun way to start. And then we're going to move into sort of a meditative prayer. And then I have some things that I thought I would share today that we could talk about. Some foundational practices for a path of awakening, you might say. But I wonder if somebody else has something that's really. Barbara, what about you these days? Barbara Vale, you know, you're still connected with your core communities? Because what's interesting, I'm going to say something about Barbara, put you on the spot. What Barbara's done, if I may say, that I've always appreciated is that Barbara has woven together the influence of, typically it's three, right? Three communities that in their totality and complementarity satisfy the fullness of your spiritual life and journey. And is that still true for you? And can you just say anything about that for the group? Because I think it's so important that we illustrate for each other what we can do and what's out there. Barbara.
Sure. So I have Althea Center, and it's interesting how I've been there for quite a long time, about 28 years or something. And so have experienced 4 ministers. The first 2 were married couple, the Copps, and then Jonathan. And then our new one, she's been on about 7 or 8 months. And how different, what they bring, what each one brings to Althea, which was it's a New Thought church. It's the Divine Science, the first Divine Science church doing business as Althea Center. And so I'm interested in that, how my very first one, initiation was with the Copps, and they're very mystical. They just love mystical teachings, also depth psychology, and they both, well, Jane at least was a professor, so very learned. And Carl brought in quite a bit of Buddhism as well, and a whole lot of creativity. We did plays and all kinds of things. And then Jonathan brought in, one thing I think is that you helped us become a community, and also brought in a whole lot of the nature and the native practices, the indigenous practices, which just were wonderful, always feed my soul. And then this new woman is, her name is Christine Jones. She brings in a lot of metaphysical stuff, woo-woo. She says she's a woo-woo teacher. So, okay. But she also is completely grounded in New Thought, especially religious science, which is a different branch than divine science. Anyway, so that's all interesting, and I've got all that going on. And then I have oneness, which is my connection with the divine. It's very much a vertical, connection, and I do meditations and classes with them, with that organization.
So just to clarify, when Barbara says oneness, she's referring to an organization based in India.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so
right.
It's much more oriented around techniques of awakening, right? Awakening to oneness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awakening to oneness and awakening to moving toward enlightenment and away from suffering. So that's the big push, and that just sounds great, and it actually is great. I mean, in the practices, I see that happening more and more in my life, so it keeps me going with that one. And my third one is it's incarnational spirituality with the Lorian group that started in Findhorn in Scotland. So a spiritual community, and a community really involved also with climate and nature and getting back to nature, that kind of thing. And also the subtle realms. So not only flower devas and angels and so forth, but the she and the fairies and the overlighting beings and the techno elementals and all that. That's much more of a horizontal out there, the sacredness of all, of everything, sacredness of everything. And so I feel like I get both.
Yeah. So that's what, thank you, Barbara. I mean, it's why I wanted Barbara to share, because, you know, it is the theme I was hoping to explore today, which are what are the practices that can keep us, you know, grounded and yet aspiring and transcendent, support us as individuals and connect us to others. And I love that Catherine's example was a place that's attempting to do all of it in one place. Michael Singer's teachings are very, what I would call mystical. They're very oneness oriented. But it's now in a community setting where there's mind body, you know, which is yoga and meditation work going on. So it's kind of a neat way that one group is blending it in. And then I love the way Barbara is talking about one of her communities is very much about the transcendence, the oneness. And then you have one that's very much about the incarnation of energy. And then sort of this community group that's somewhere in the middle and has a bit of both, but isn't exactly both either, right? So it's this one, it's really lovely. Does anybody else have an example of a path or a way that you're stitching it all together to make it work for yourself? Can we get one more example? I know who I might pick on, unless someone else wants to. Well, actually, I have two people I'm going to pick on. Chantel, are you available to come to the camera? And I'll wait and see if she does, because I have a question for her. And oh, there you are. You know, Chantel, I wonder if
Yes.
you would comment on this. You've been around a lot of teachers over the years, and you've explored a lot of things. In this moment, I wonder if there's a memory you have of a community or a practice or a time where you felt you experienced something very integrated, right? Like something that had a lot of the pieces. Now, it might not be in your life now or things like that. But can you think of either a teacher or a place or a practice that you felt was like a really great example of how to do things? Or maybe no, maybe your comment is that there's no such place yet.
On my desk, I have the photo of my, I would say, gurus. So I experience on a daily life their presence, I would say. I guess it's so part of my life that now I don't see the difference between being with myself, with you guys, and with them. It's all like one. And I don't know if I could call that an experience anymore. It seems to be a living spiritual thing. Do you call it experience? They're my friends, my guide, my teacher, my revelation, my everything, my pain, my joy, and everything. Everything is encompassed into that kind of relationship. And it's difficult to put that into words, really. There is no word for it, almost, it's just, it's like a continence, a stillness it's like a stillness in the void, in a hollow, when you sit there and you said, be still and know that I am God. And then all of a sudden you feel stillness, but it's hollow inside of you, like everything just stop.
Mm.
And I don't know, it's a, I don't know how to explain it, but I went also to my, because I've been with the organization for 40 years. So when I went to California, where the organization is in Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of places I could go, and the peace that I felt there, and the energy, you know, the vibration. There is one thing I didn't understand, and I want to know I would like to know your comment about it, or even people. When I went to the mother center where everything started, you, they opened the big, huge gate, and as they opened the gate, I enter the gate, and I bend myself because the vibration was so heavy.
Mm.
So I was wondering, if the vibration are so heavy and it's a spiritual place, how do you connect the two together? Because I felt like I had to bend myself, even though there was nothing to bend myself. Oh, this is so heavy. So that was a strong vibration. So I would say that's the experience I will always remember.
Mm.
That didn't make sense to me. Why it's so strong and heavy?
But
It should
heavy
be
in
light.
so there's a question. Heavy in the sense that it felt negative or dark or scary, or just
No,
heavy in the
intense.
sense of thick.
Yeah, intense. Very, yeah, thick,
Yeah. Well,
concentrated energy.
yeah. I will just make a comment about that. I definitely have been in places and ceremonies where the intensity is humbling, right? That it's quite almost literally I don't want to say pressing you to bow,
Oh, yeah, that's a nice way to say it. Yeah.
but there is something in that concept or connection. There's this um magnitude, and I do experience that spiritual energy can be dense
Mhm.
and not necessarily well, I don't know, I don't, the language is funny, but you know what I mean when I say wrong or bad or whatever. Now we think, actually, this is interesting to just reflect on a bit. We think of lightness and light when we think of spiritual teachers and spiritual teachings.
Mm.
But light and lightness are actually different, I think. And it's been my experience that in some ceremonies or settings we can, by I'm giving you an analogy, we can experience such intense light that it can almost feel paralyzing or crippling even, right? And that, to me, the explanation is that it's 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 almost an overload for the nervous system, you know. And some people in this room have experienced moments, for example, of meditation where you have like a breakthrough moment, and actually that's in this book, Spiritual Experience, um where it's so intense we don't even, like, we have this feeling like we couldn't even possibly feel more, we couldn't possibly take any more in. So I don't necessarily think it's a contradiction, although I can understand why it might be curious, right? And might even create that wondering. Um, and particularly around certain teachers who work with miracles and manifestate. And when I say manifestation, I mean, like, you know, I don't mean this disrespectfully. I mean like real manifestation, like opens his hand and there's the vibhuti crumbling out, or a golden idol or whatever. I mean, there's people who work pretty crazy miracles. Um, so I think the energy almost has to be dense for that kind of magnitude of work. Now, here's another direction to go with this, and then maybe we can pause and take a breath, and I'll and we'll get back into talking and sharing. There's this interesting thing about people and places as conductors of energy. And I think it's why nature ends up being such a potent place for spiritual connection. I have to adjust my heater. Which is that subtle energy seems to require a conduit in order to be intelligibly received. In other words, to be something that you can either make sense of or direct. And because it comes from another dimension, and because it has a different frequency than ordinary cell phone signals and colors of the rainbow, it requires a kind of meta nervous system to contain it. And that's why community works, because energy can actually come into places where there is more people than when there is less. And sacred architecture, right? Consecration of grounds and things like that. These also become ways to potentiate the harnessing of energy. And so, depending on the intention and ceremony of a small group of people, or the ritual and construction of a sacred place, and interestingly, I'm sure there's some attention to that where Catherine went, where the space is created and appointed. And I know that for Barbara, that's also true for Findhorn as a community, for the oneness community in India. There's a tremendous amount of energy put into the management of energy and potentiating people, places, and things. And that's really what an altar is, right? I mean, an altar is a place to attract and house and channel energy. So I am going on, but it's to respond to this observation of Chantel that yes, some places can feel very different. And part of that has to do with the way they are built to house and hold energy. Now, the last comment I would make is that I believe that nature is innately built that way. Now, sure, we can even potentiate nature by adding a circle of stones or a ceremonial space or a sweat lodge or whatever. But as Joni talked about sitting under that canopy, that tree that was like a teepee, there is power and energy there being harnessed by the tree itself. And so we have both the advantage of physical space for managing energy and the interaction of two organisms, the human and the tree itself. And it's curious because I do believe that energy is one of the missing languages of spirituality, that we've kind of slowly began to reclaim. We talk about subtle energy and energy medicine, and we use words like vibration and vibes, but I don't know that we have much of a common social dictionary around this language. And I think we would probably all benefit if we did. Anyway, thank you for opening a big door there for us.
Victor,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good way to see it.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
But going back to the big group, before we just take a pause, maybe have a little meditative prayer together, and then focus for a minute, kind of bringing the conversation narrow. I wanted to share 7 things that we might incorporate into our life on a daily, weekly basis. But did anybody else want to add something? We're good? Okay. Well, in that case, let's take a breath. I'm going to show you something. You're the first people I'm going to show. Look at this. Do you know what this is? This is the skull of a harbor seal, which I collected on a beach here. It's quite spectacular. Interestingly, it looks very similar to a canine or a land mammal. You know, I have a bear skull and a wolf skull around here somewhere. It's not unusual. It's not that dissimilar. And some people wonder why I keep these things around. But the reason why I'm so interested in skulls and skeletons is because of two things. I feel like there's such a beautiful design, right? Such an elegant design that we see inside of life, you know. So whether it's the sort of extraordinary pattern of a cedar leaf, which really an artist couldn't really do better, or whether it's the intricate patterns in the skull, it reminds us that we exist inside a design. And depending on your language, you might say that there is a plan, right? That we live in an ordered universe and that we have a choice every day to pursue that order, to reveal that order, to feel that order, and to bring ourselves into greater alignment with that order, which seems to be what brings ease to a life. The other reason, though, why, and some of you have heard me talk about this, the other reason why I like skulls in particular, because unlike trees, which renew themselves again and again and again, a skull reminds us of the presence of death and decay and the cycles of life. And that even though we are all in an eternal design, within that design, there is an endless cycle of creation and destruction, which seems paradoxical, that we exist in something eternal that has a design and a pattern that is in all things, and yet things can look so different as life and death, birth and decay. So on that note, and Chantel's sending links and information about the place she was talking about. And Barbara, maybe at some point before we hang up, you'll put in, if you feel like it, some keywords for some of the places you were talking about. But why don't we take a little pause and just bring our energy together before we continue to chat and run out of time. What I'd like to invite you to do is to sit comfortably but alert. I see some of you already sitting comfortably. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes, to just take any old nice deep breath in and a long slow exhale. Deep breath in, long slow exhale, ideally out through your mouth. Let the jaw drop. And the only thing you really need to consider while you work with your breath is just relaxing. Nothing more complicated or fancy than that. Deep, nourishing breath in, releasing, relaxing breath out. Feel your body soften. Feel yourself becoming aware of the stillness and the silence within you and around you. And from that quiet place, we connect with our hearts, the gateway to our spirit consciousness, our spirit mind lives in our hearts. From this place, each in our own way, but together as one, we offer a prayer. prayer to life, to this universe, to the divine order, to our source, our substance, to the light within all light, divine mystery, the one we call God, energy, consciousness. Together we remember and invoke the felt sense of divine energy here, where we each sit, and between us and around us. Take your time. From this energy, we move together, holding our circle in light and offering a prayer of healing for each person here. We know Carrie is on the mend, and we bless and heal and uplift her body completely. And we extend that to each and anyone who may be struggling or mending a wound or simply evolving as a soul on this earth through these human forms. Blessings, love, light, healing for each one that hears these words now and anytime. And we pray that our hearts and minds would be united and at peace, so that we might see and sense the energy of the divine within us and around us, everywhere, always. That our awareness of energy might guide our choices, our self-care, and our service. May our world awaken to a deeper knowing of energy and presence, so that we might live in alignment with the design from which we come, the original energy, the source energy. And in that way, may we each and all become stewards of that life force, of that love, of that wisdom, offering it wherever we are, whatever we do. And may we gather this radiant strength and love together to offer prayers for a wounded world, for places of war and fear, violence, for leaders filled with corruption, fear, hatred, greed. May we dissolve those qualities into the loving light of compassion and collaboration and evolution. May we extend and feel our loving energy and prayers to the creatures of this world, the non-human beings that swim, crawl, walk and fly, all the beings everywhere, and to the earth herself. We pray for vibrancy and the restoration of balance, that we may continue as souls in this great evolution, lifting energy and consciousness to the highest, for the good of all in this world and beyond. Amen. So, it's been meaningful for me to hear from some of you today, and hopefully for everyone, because the topic I had in mind we've really covered, but I'm going to still give you a little something to wrap up with, and that is the topic of what does the journey look like, you know, and what are the elements that might keep us not only spiritually connected but evolving, which are not necessarily the same things, right? We can have a spiritual life, or we can have a spiritual identity, or a spiritual sort of practice or community, and not necessarily feel like we're in a moment of growth. We can feel connected, we can feel supported, but we don't necessarily feel challenged or aspiring or awakening. And I do think that there are some basic practices that if we put them together on a regular basis, then we innately grow and evolve, because we are inviting an interactive relationship with the spiritual world. And I think that's as much or more than psychology or any kind of healing. I think that's essential. So I've based these practices on the book Spiritual Experience, which you've hopefully heard too much about. And I'm going to just show you one quick slide here that helps describe it. So the reason why it's based on the book is that the book talks about 7 key types of spiritual experience, categories, 7 key categories. And it turns out that there is a kind of practice or activity that goes along with each of them. Now, obviously, this is a super simplification, but the opportunity today is to ask oneself, like, oh, am I doing these 7 things? Which one don't I do? Can I incorporate it? And to me, these can be integrated into almost any religious community or setting. They can be added to almost any spiritual practice. Yes, these are, you might say, foundational elements that can exist in a sort of matrix with the other things you may already be doing in your life. So let me just walk you through them and tell you sort of what I'm thinking about each. And then I'd love to come back to the group and have a little more time to talk before we wrap up. So the first category in the book Spiritual Experience, which in the table of contents outlines these seven categories. The first one is called the experience of truth and beauty. And one of the things that we require in order to experience little breakthrough moments in everyday life, little moments where we glimpse the grand design, where we feel our senses awaken, where we feel peace moving through us, mindfulness or present moment awareness is an critical ingredient. Now, mindfulness is often, well, let's say it's somewhat overused these days, but it doesn't change the fact that it's an essential practice. And when we say mindfulness, typically what we mean or what we're talking about is the ability to be in an observing, non-judgmental, present moment state of mind. That we are opening our hearts, our minds, and our senses to simply experiencing what is without labeling or over analysis. And yes, this is something we can commit to. This is something we can be aware of when we're not doing it. And we know we're not doing it when we're too distracted, worrying, thinking, fearing, planning, judging, controlling. So can we cultivate mindfulness in all we do? The second category of spiritual experience is called moments of ordinary magic. And that's when we experience the unexplainable in ordinary situations. So it might be a miracle, a healing that wasn't expected. It might be an improbable event. It might be improbable fortune. It might be, well, one of the easy examples is synchronicity. So we look for patterns in events that have meaning, whether that's perpetually looking at your clock always exactly at 11:11 or 3:33, whether that's noticing coincidences of color or people who bring a certain topic up again and again, and you think, oh, this is the fifth time someone's brought up Yogananda this week. Maybe I'm going to take that as a sign. So I put the word synchronicity there. I would also call this the practice of symbolic sight. And that means you are constantly observing the world, not just for the evidence of the design, but for a kind of transmission uh, of the greater dimension that we come from. The idea that that this design is interacting with events, and that there are, you might say, messages everywhere. You might say that the world becomes a kind of text that we are perpetually reading. Then we have the third category of spiritual experience, which is experiences of the spirit world. And while it may be very familiar to some of you and very unfamiliar to others, this means the conscientious cultivation of contact with non-incarnated beings. And so that could be like Chantel talked about having gurus or divine masters on her altar, or Barbara talked about Finhorn and the spirit forms of, let's say, plants or nature. But we consciously cultivate a relationship to non-embodied beings. And for me, that's everything in that spiritual realm, whether it's deities, divinities, Krishna, Buddha, for example, or whether it's uh, earth-related spirits, like the spirit of fire or water or the river, or even ancestors that come and go within these realms. So creating spirit contact as a regular part of life. The fourth is a very specific practice, and I absolutely believe that for many people, not everyone, it is a potent gateway to energize energy work, prayer work, meditation, spirit contact, and that is to simply practice visualizing. And there are all kinds of guided imagery opportunities out there, whether it's in apps like Calm, or whether it's on YouTube, or, I mean, you name it, it's out there. You just need to look up guided imagery or visualization. You'll find all kinds of helpful work. And even though we're not all richly imagematic in our thinking styles, I do find that visualization as a method absolutely potentiates our ability to see, feel, and receive guidance. No question. It's also a great way to participate in energy work, which is the next category. And the fifth category in the 7 types, the 7 archetypes or categories of spiritual experience, is the energy realm. A visualization was connected to the cosmic self. That's a chapter. Anyway, we're moving on to the energy realm, and I would say find some type of energy work to learn about, whether it's something simple you can do in a weekend like Reiki, or whether it's a more comprehensive study like Healing Touch. Take an interest in energy work. Read a book about it, watch some videos about it, take a certification in something. I don't think you necessarily need to be an energy healer. I think that's a calling and some people are gifted. But I would love, I mean, in my fantasy world, every kid would have an energy work class, probably in grades 8, 9, and 10. and they would learn about, like Chantel was saying, reading the energy of a place, knowing the energy of their body, reading the energy in nature. This is a phenomenal amount of information that many of us are missing all the time. Moving on to practice number 6, and this mirrors the topic divine formless spirit, which is prayer. I do believe in prayerfulness. I don't particularly care what model you use. Of course, in the New Thought communities, prayer is a present moment embodiment of what we long for or seek. So we don't say, I wish for this. We say, I see this or I feel this, right? So I am not hoping I heal, I am healing, right? That would be an example of a style of prayer. It's affirmative present moment. But of course, there's also traditional prayers, there's song prayers, there's chanting prayers. But to be in a dialogue with the unseen forces, to be in a dialogue with the ultimate nature of reality and spirit, I think is vital to activating continued growth. And then finally, good old-fashioned meditation. So if you're going to be putting it out, practice being still and letting it come in. Now, I will say, I don't think all these need to be laborious. Now, if meditation is your path, sure, you may want to meditate an hour a day every day. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying with these 7 things that I'm laying out for you today, I think we all need a little bit of all of them. So maybe that's 15 minutes of meditation a few times a week. Maybe that's 5 minutes of prayer every day. Maybe that's energy work as a class we take or a book we study. Visualization as a way we complement our prayer or meditation. Hopefully you get the idea. We should have a dose of all of this every week. And I would argue even most of these things we need more than once a week. And some of them, like mindfulness, synchronicity, spirit contact, I would say every day, as well as energy work. So I'm going to come out of my shared screen and back to our gallery view. And I wonder if there's anything anybody would like to add or ask or clarify in the time we have remaining before I start picking on people. And maybe someone, yeah, Eve, go ahead.
Is Michael Singer the one that wrote Untethered Soul?
Yes.
Okay, I've read him, I don't know when it came out, 20 years ago. It was wonderful. I passed it around to friends and that and other people. The other thing I've been reading is I'm still into it. It's from my book club that I belonged to at the library for 25 to 30 years. We chose Braiding Sweetgrass. Have you heard of it?
Oh, such an important book. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I can't say how deeply it has touched me and is touching me. It's just wonderful.
Mm.
I just wanted to pass those 2 things along.
Yes. I love it. I recommend both.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
definitely.
Braiding Sweetgrass is a book. It's a very special book. I would recommend really to anyone that feels attracted to it.
Yeah.
And I think what's really special about it is it bridges kind of all of these things that we've just talked about, but in very pragmatic and cultural settings.
Yeah,
You know, it's hard to almost describe,
it
but
is.
oh, therapeutic touch. Yes. That's a wonderful practice as well. So thank you for that recommendation, Eve, and thank you for the therapeutic touch shout out. Um, Anybody else? Something you would like to add to support the list, or a comment you want to make, or a book you're reading? Because today is just about resources and life practices and what works. Joni, do you want to? Yeah, unmute, come in.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to add that, all these practices are ones that I involve myself in. And in some of the work that I've done with others, like energy work, what the main question that I get is, well, why were you chosen? Or I want to have what you have. I want to get what you've got. Why am I not receiving? Um, why do I not get what you've gotten? And my answer is really simple, and it uses all of the um, methods that Jonathan speaks of, which is that it's about it's about training yourself and training yourself to receive.
Mhm.
And it's why I come to places like where I am today in nature, which is that I
Hmm.
don't have to work so hard. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of a refresher for me in that I don't have to visualize. I don't have to use my imagination. I don't have to go through, I don't like a formal ceremony. I'm in ceremony as soon as I step out here.
Mhm.
Um, and and it's about opening one's senses. And what that does is it just allows you to begin receiving and insight messages, um, that are the energy, the force within nature, within um, entities, angels. And it's not about seeing, like take an angel, for example. It's not about seeing the angel. It's about arriving in a state where you can receive the energy and insight and love from that being. And it happens through any of the practices that Jonathan has spoken of today. I'll stop there.
Joni, that was like the best wrap up for today I could possibly imagine. I mean, honest to goodness, I think that's it, really. I mean, that is the essence of what, I wanted to share these practices was to say, and I want to focus on what Joni was saying, that training to receive, practicing the ability to receive. That was the intention behind these 7 practices in particular. Um, and again, the reason being that when we work on these things in particular, it's about opening ourselves to interact with and receive from the spirit and consciousness that is around us. And of course, as Joni shared, it's particularly potent in nature. And it's also worth noting, as you started off, that it's true. Some of us are going to be strong in some of these areas and not in others. And some of us are going to have gifts in some of these areas and not in others. And some of us can even build professions or careers or really practical aptitudes around some of these things. It doesn't diminish the fact that some measure of all of these things is important for all of us. And to me, I think of it as being a part of spiritual intelligence. This is how we awaken our spiritual intelligence. They are all vehicles of expanding intuition, intuition through connection and connection through intuition. Um, yeah. So, so, so there it is. Um, there's always more to say, and we're going to be here next week. And I encourage and hope that you'll consider some of the things that we've talked about today, some of the authors that have been suggested, the books that have been suggested, the communities that have been suggested, as well as these 7 practices, and of course, this wonderful final perspective on how they are here for us to help us to awaken to a greater experience of life and a greater feeling of guidance within. Now, before I go, oh, So Chantel was just asking about which email to send a photo of my book, because in about a week I'm going to finally send that free class to anyone who bought the book. And it's just the same email that all my business correspondence goes through. So it's connect@jonathanellerby.com. That's on my website. That's who sends the newsletter. So yes, just you can send some photo or receipt of getting the book. And and there we have Kawika joining just for a quick hello at the end. So lots of love to you, brother. And thank you everyone for being here today. I think this was really wonderful and I appreciate everything that was shared. And so I'll say goodbye and we will see you.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. Hope you heal quickly, or you will heal quickly.
Yeah, I will. I am. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Lori.
You
Thank you
are,
for being
I
out there,
am.
and Lanny and Janet, all the people we couldn't see, and everyone else.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.